Welcome to MMAPlay365. I'm Newsome and I'm here to give you the Bayes AI recap from last weekend at UFC 278. Now overall, the AI hit 54% accuracy across the straight predictions, which of course is a little lower than we like, but as we keep saying week after week, we're going to have some really great events, but these events that do slip under our 60 to 65% are very infrequent, shall we say. In the last 3 months, we've only had 3 events under the 60 to 65% mark that we like. So, as always, we are going to get that every now and again, but for the most part, the predictions are great across the board. And of course, the predictions are more than just straight prediction accuracy across the board as well. We do delve into methods of victory, so knockout, submission, decision for both fighters in each fight as well, across all fights on the event, and we also jump into the rounds plus method of victory as well, so knockout round 1, 2 and 3, submission round 1, 2 and 3, of course rounds 4 and 5 for championship fights as well. But back to this event at UFC 278, apart from actually the main event and the co-main event, from the events perspective, it was quite a bland event, if I'm being honest, and it actually reflected a little bit on the AI predictions as well, because there wasn't anything that stood out massively, not from a gem perspective, so something absolutely nuts that the AI predicted that the bookies were having the complete opposite way. And on the flip side, there weren't really any terrible predictions either. There was a couple of results I was surprised about, but nothing that was absolutely terrible. So like I said, from the events perspective, it was a little bit bland. From the AI predictions as well, it kind of reflected that also. But we do have 4 fights that I do quickly want to run over, and we start in the value section, and which is the main event as well, which was the welterweight championship fight, the rematch between Leon Edwards and Kamaru Usman. Now, the bookies had Kamaru Usman at like -400 for the majority of fight week, and that line was way too wide in my opinion. I actually bet Leon Edwards at a 3-1 underdog plus 300, and the AI agreed with that as well. So the AI had Leon Edwards to win at 43%, which odds implied is plus 133, and like I said, it was plus 300 for the most part on the betting line throughout fight week. And like I say, the AI definitely saw this fight as a much closer fight than the bookies were suggesting it was. And I know that, Kamaru Usman was less than 60 seconds away from winning that fight and retaining his welterweight championship, but he didn't. And that's the result, and that's what matters. And the fact that the AI thought that Edwards should be much closer, or the line should be much closer, and Edwards was too big of an underdog, is definitely reflective of what happened in the fight, because Leon Edwards did win and became the new champion. But then we break that down a little bit further. Edwards to win inside the distance. Now, this is one that surprised me a little bit. So this is adding your KO and your submission together. And, Leon Edwards isn't known as a finisher. He's definitely known as a fighter that's dominant over the course of a fight. But 23%, it was saying that Leon Edwards to win inside the distance. So the AI had that at 23%. Odds implied is plus 335, and you could have got plus 500 on the betting line. So again, there was value there for sure. So value there in the straight pick, value there in the inside the distance, and we go one step further with Leon Edwards via KO. Now, again, this is the most surprising part of this, because Leon Edwards to win via knockout was actually the exact same prediction percentage as Leon Edwards to win via decision. And again, that surprised me. I thought that if Edwards was going to win the fight, he was going to win it via decision. So the AI was saying, look, no, the decision is as likely as the knockout. And of course, we saw the knockout that was heard all around the world. So at 20% odds implied, that's plus 400, and you could have got plus 700 on the knockout overall from the betting lines. And again, there's a tremendous amount of value in that, as well as that also would have been a cashed ticket. And in the next section, we're jumping into the solid winner. So Tyson Pedro versus Harry Hunsucker. I said on the breakdown podcast that this was a massive mismatch, and of course it was. So Pedro to win, 74.20%. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because anything over 70%, the AI is normally very, very confident in, and I don't think it's lost anything above 70% off the top of my head. I haven't got the full results to look over, which, by the way, you can find on the MMAPlay365 website as well. We do have the full results across the handicapper results and across the Bayes AI results as well when we first launched that at the beginning of this year. But anyway, so 74.20% Pedro to win, odds implied -288. He was -700 on the betting line, so there's no value there on the betting line. But again, nonetheless, the AI doesn't rarely go above 70% in the predictions, but when it does, it normally wins, and it did this time, and it won again. But like I said, from a value perspective, if you are betting it, then there wasn't much value, if any value at all. But you can break that down a little bit further. So Tyson Pedro to win inside the distance, 74.12%. And odds implied, that's -286, -450 on the betting line. So again, not much value. Excuse me, there wasn't any value there. But the one thing that I did want to mention with this is the fact that Pedro to win outright was 74.20%, but Pedro to win inside the distance was 74.12%. It was 0.06% that he'd win by decision. So if you were betting that fight, you get a slightly better line for going inside the distance opposed to the money line. But this is what I love about the AI. It's very accurate in regards to, okay, this fighter, it is a mismatch, you know, the AI agreed with that. But then it also said that, you know, Tyson Pedro to win by decision is so low percentage that you might as well go inside the distance. And to actually have an inside the distance at 74% as well, which is absolutely ridiculous. So again, the AI is instructing you very subtly that if you are betting Tyson Pedro, just take him via inside the distance, opposed to taking him straight with the money line, just because you're getting a better line, and the likelihood of him winning a decision in the fight going 3 rounds is very unlikely. So I love that from the AI's perspective. And again, that is a reflection of that in that Tyson Pedro and Harry Hunsucker fight as well. And in the final section of this recap, I did mention at the start of the recap that there was a couple of surprise losses, and that's what we're going to jump into now. So the first one, AJ Fletcher versus Ange Loosa. Personally, I thought AJ Fletcher's striking was going to be too dynamic for Loosa. I thought his wrestling was going to be on point. I thought he would have some topside control with the grappling as well. And the AI agreed with that to an extent. It had Fletcher to win at 68%. Odds implied is -150. He was also around -150 on the betting line. So the AI did agree with where the bookies had the line set. But like I said, Ange Loosa was, you know, more than good enough in that fight to take that from AJ Fletcher. Admittedly, the elevation at Salt Lake City could have played a part. You know, fighters were looking a little bit hotter and a little bit more tired than normal. And, you know, that is, again, normal when you're fighting at elevation. So maybe that did play a part, but ultimately the Bayes AI is not going to take elevation into consideration. But at 60%, I still thought AJ Fletcher was, I thought that was accurate from the AI, and like I said, the betting line suggested it was accurate also. And Ange Loosa he just looked great on the night. There's no sugarcoating it. So that was one surprise loss. The other surprise loss, Alexandr Romanov versus Marcin Tybura. Again, I'm a massive fan of Alexandr Romanov. He was 16-0 coming into this fight, an absolute beast. He took his first loss. The AI also agreed at 64%. Which odds implied is -178. So there wasn't much value on the betting line because the betting line was sitting at -330. But at 64%, the AI is definitely agreeing that Alexandr Romanov should have a good fight here against Marcin Tybura, and obviously he took a loss. I thought that there was a loss coming for Romanov at some point. I just definitely didn't think it was Marcin Tybura, and I thought Romanov had him covered in pretty much every area, which of course wasn't the case. So that was a second surprise loss on the night, and that's pretty much it from the Bayes AI recap. We're on a week break, so we'll be back in a couple of weeks to do a recap on UFC Paris. You know, it's the first time the UFC is going over to France since they fully legalized mixed martial arts over there, so that's going to be exciting. There's a couple of really good fights on there as well. I think from a fight card perspective overall, especially the main card's really good, so I'm looking forward to what Bayes AI is going to be predicting there. There's also a couple of debutants also, so again, that's going to be interesting from a Bayes AI perspective. But until then, I'm Newsome. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again in a couple of weeks.